Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making something spicy and fresh. Today we're making a jalapeno lime chicken and cauliflower rice bowl. And as a bonus to that, I'm going to show you how to make compound butter, which is what I'm going to use for this. Now I didn't have to make a compound butter for this. I could have just, mixed all the ingredients in, but it's something that I wanted to make and I wanted to show you how to make it. So let's just go ahead, get into that, and see how we make it.
What we're going to need for our compound butter is the following: a lime, a jalapeno, 4 tablespoons of butter, and a bunch of cilantro. While the lime juice is not required for the compound butter, we are going to roll it out to loosen up all the juice for later on. Now go ahead and grab your zester. Mine is on a cheese grater, so I'm just going to use that. Now you're just going to want to keep rolling your lime around, trying to get all the green part off of the lime, trying not to get too much of the white pith because it is kind of bitter. Once you removed all the zest from the lime, go ahead and take your knife carefully and just add it to your butter. Next, grab your jalapeno and go ahead and run it through the zester the same way that you did the lime. You're only going to use about half of the jalapeno though. And I grate my jalapeno onto a paper towel or napkin. That way there's not too much liquid in the butter, and you can just pat it dry, making sure that you get all that liquid. Once it's patted dry, go ahead and take your knife again and carefully add it to your butter. Next, take a bunch of cilantro and chop it up as finely as you can. You don't want too big of chunks when you're doing compound butter. Just try to get it as small as you can. Then go ahead with your knife and add that to your butter also. Then go ahead with a spoon or spatula and just make sure that you combine all the ingredients with your butter as thoroughly as you can. Now when you're done, this is what you want your butter to look like. At this point I realized that I was using unsalted butter, so I did add a pinch of salt. Now go ahead and lay down your plastic wrap and then take your butter with your spoon and just lay it in the middle in a mound. Then just try to form your butter into a mound in the center. Then we're just going to fold over one end of our plastic wrap and we're just going to pull it tight, trying to get all the air out and to form it into a nice cylinder. And then you're just going to roll it and squeeze the ends, so that way you try to push all the butter towards the center and just roll it up kind of like you would a candy or a Tootsie Roll. A low carb candy or Tootsie Roll, of course. Now go ahead and cut your lime in half, setting one half aside for later. Now take one half of your lime and just go ahead and squeeze it for all it's worth and get all that good juice out of there, making sure that if there are any seeds that you remove them. Now go ahead and grab another bunch of cilantro, and this one doesn't have to be chopped as finely as it did for the compound butter, so just give it a nice rough chop because this is just going in your marinade, and just add it to your lime juice. Now go ahead and take your remaining half of jalapeno and just go ahead and split it down the middle lengthwise, and then just go ahead and give it a rough dice. Size really isn't important here, and I leave the seeds in, but you can remove them if you don't want them to be quite as hot. Then again, go ahead and add that to your lime juice. Then just go ahead and add a pinch of salt, a pinch of ground cumin, a half to a whole tablespoon of minced garlic, and about 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Then just grab a spoon and mix them all together. Now go ahead and cut your chicken into smaller pieces. I have a rather large piece here, so I'm cutting it into quarters. Then place the pieces in the marinade and make sure that you cover them thoroughly, getting it all over. Once your pieces are nice and coated, just go ahead and put your lid on your chicken and then throw in the fridge for at least 1 hour to marinate. And now it's time to prep our rice. First we're going to start by slicing a tomato. And what we're looking for is a nice even dice. And then once you're done dicing them, you're going to want to set 1/3 of them aside for later on in the recipe and one for your rice. Now go ahead and take a quarter of a large red onion or half of a smaller one, and then we're just going to cut that into small dices also. Now before you dice your remaining jalapeno, if you want it a little bit cooler and less hot, go ahead and take the seeds out. If not, otherwise leave them, and then go ahead and dice them. And the last thing before we start cooking is just a rough chop on a little more cilantro. Now in a preheated pan, go ahead and add a tablespoon of olive oil. And once your olive oil is hot, then just go ahead and set your chicken breast down. That way you get a nice sear on it and some really good color, which is going to add a lot of flavor to the chicken. Now once your chicken breaks free from your pan with very little help, go ahead and just start moving them around. That way they don't burn. And just keep moving them, and once they get a really good color on them, just go ahead and turn your heat down and give them a flip, so that way we start cooking the other side, making sure that you press the chicken down so we get a good sear on that side also. And once the chicken starts breaking free on that side and you can move them around, it's time to start basting your chicken. Now we're going to cut off a tablespoon of our compound butter, and this is what it should look like. Beautiful color and seasoning all the way through. Then we're just going to add it to our pan and let it start melting down a little bit. Once our butter has started melting, go ahead and grab a spoon, tilt your pan, and just slowly start basting your chicken, making sure to coat all the pieces, alternating between each of them, making sure that they are coated evenly. Now once you've basted your chicken for 2 to 3 minutes, go ahead and grab a meat thermometer and check your chicken to make sure that it's about 165 degrees. Once it reaches that temperature, just go ahead and set it off to the side and let it rest. Now it's time for our rice. Add 1 tablespoon of olive oil to a clean pan. And once your oil is warmed up over a medium heat, go ahead and add your onions. And then you want to keep your onions moving. You want to get a good color on them, but you don't want them to burn. And once your onions are translucent, then you're going to add your jalapenos and start cooking them down. Remember, the longer they cook, the more mild they will be. So just take your spatula, move them all around, and let your jalapenos cook into your desired temperature. Then go ahead and add a teaspoon of minced garlic, and again, keep moving them around so that way they don't stick or burn. And lastly, we're going to add 2/3 of the diced tomatoes that we cut up earlier. Now you only want to cook these for about a minute. You just want to get a little bit of color on it and get the flavors combined. Now we're going to add our cauliflower rice. I'm using a 12-ounce bag, but you can shred your own cauliflower if you prefer. I just like it for the convenience. And now it's time to season. We're going to start with a large pinch of sea salt, a pinch of cumin, and roughly chopped cilantro. Then go ahead and grab your spatula, just give that a good mix. And once it's all combined, go ahead and leave yourself a little hole in the center of your rice, and then throw in the 3 tablespoons of compound butter and let that start melting down. Once your butter has melted, go ahead and grab your spatula and then just start incorporating all the butter throughout the rice, making sure that you coat all of it. And after your rice is well coated with your butter, go ahead and grab your other half of your lime. Just give it a really good squeeze, making sure you get all the juice out of there, because the more juice you can get from that lime, the more flavorful and fresh your rice will taste. Now give it one last good mix, incorporating all the lime juice in the rice, and then go ahead and set it off to the side and let it rest, because your rice is done. By now your chicken will be well rested and ready to be cut. You can dice your chicken if you prefer it that way, but I prefer slices, so that's what I went with. Now in a bowl, go ahead and add half of your rice. Then top that with half of your chicken, sliced or diced. Then top it with half of the diced tomatoes that you set aside earlier, and a pinch of chopped cilantro. How fresh and delicious does that look?
And there we have it. Jalapeno lime chicken and cauliflower rice. You can really smell the lime, the freshness from it. This looks so good. I'm just so excited to see if it tastes just as good as it looks. That's really good. The freshness from the limes, the fresh tomatoes and cilantro I topped it off with at the end. That is really good. Really buttery. Yeah, there's nothing wrong I can say about this. The cauliflower rice is perfectly cooked. Still got a little bit of a bite to it, but it's really soft. This is so fresh. It's got a little spicy, little spice at the back. That is really good. Now, as far as the compound butter goes, again, like I said, you don't need it for this recipe, but you do need the butter and the spices and all that other elements to it. So I figured, you know what? Let's just go ahead, make the compound butter, show you how I make mine, and we'll just use it in this recipe. So feel free to go ahead and just take those ingredients and just add them in, at the appropriate times. But I just find that it makes it so much easier, especially when you're basting your chicken in the butter. And then when you add it to the end for your cauliflower, just to bring that all together, and just because it's so much easier to get all those amounts and ingredients in at once. So while you don't need to do it, I would recommend that you do it just because it's so much easier, convenient, and there's so many uses for it. You can top your steaks off with it, your chicken. You can even do fish depending on what flavors you put in your butter. So it's really good, really easy. So I highly recommend that you try this dish. It is so delicious, so fresh, and it's sure to please and impress anybody. So definitely give it a shot. And yeah, with that said, thank you for stopping by. Stay awesome, and I'll see you soon.